would like to turn to this passage that we have read now, and that is chapter 2 of Isaiah, verses 1 to 5. We left out verse 5, which is, "Come, O house of Jacob, let us walk in the light of the Lord." Nowadays we are all thinking of hope. Is there any hope in this world? Wherever we turn to, there is hopelessness. You see? And sometimes we don't feel that because we don't take time to think. That's the main reason. But when we think of the world and our own situation, our own families and our own communities where we live, there seems to be very little scope for hope. But why do people live? They just live. Say, we just stopped by some of the people who live on the footpath in the morning to hand over some food to them. And after that I was thinking, why do they live? See, living inside a good shelter, good house, I catch cold and find it difficult to get up in the morning and all that. But they sleep on the pavements. They're sleeping on the pavements yesterday night. And they get up. What is their hope? They don't have a hope of having a house in the near future or in their life. In their life, they are not hoping, I'm very sure, to live under a roof. They'll be living, they'll be working, and they'll have children, and the children will grow up all on the pavements of the road. Whether it is rain or shine or whether it's cold or whatever it is, they will be. Do they have a hope? They don't have. Then why do they live? Maybe because they don't want to end their life. You see, they don't have that courage, but they just live without hope. And when you take that into magnify it and apply it to various situations, the reason why our countries are, why do we live? You see? But sometimes, we just don't have hope at all. The future we can't see. But now this passage is talking about hope. The reasons for hope. And also being people of hope. People who can give hope to others. Now let us read that the first verses one more time. I'll read verse 2. In the last days, what does that mean? It simply means in the days to come, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains. It will be exalted above the hills, and nations will stream to it. Now, we lived through a period of hopelessness. I was so depressed when we had that siege of the attack on Bombay, the attack on Mumbai. And then, what were the channels saying? We don't have a hope. That's what they're saying. This great journalist, Pranay Roy, what was he saying? His slogan was, "Enough is enough." That was the title. That was the main theme that they had in NDTV 24/7. Enough is enough. You see? So it was it's a sort of a hopelessness. There is no hope. Have you read that tags that come in the channel, in the bottom of the TV screen? These are the SMS and email that people send. All sort of messages of hopelessness. I can see when you read that, you can see disappointment and frustration at the system. What is this? What is going on? We have no hope in the politicians and all sort of things that people write. They send it from their BlackBerry or their mobiles or whatever it is, and it just goes like a marquee. It goes. Words of hopelessness. Now, one good thing about the Word of God is the people who have seen God carry hope. Now, the man called Isaiah, here's the man called Isaiah, and the title says, "This is what Isaiah son of Amos saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem." He says, "The Lord's temple will be exalted as the highest of the mountains, and will be exalted above the hills." He's talking about the city of Jerusalem. But earlier on, in verse 21, he looked at the same city. And he said, "How the faithful city has become a prostitute. She once was full of justice, righteousness used to dwell in her, but now murderers." Wherever you turn into the city of Jerusalem, there are murderers. There are people who kill. There are people who exploit. And the city, which is a faithful city, supposed to be a faithful city, has become a place to be dreaded. You don't want to live in that city. That's exactly what is happening literally in Jerusalem now. Where do you live? It's a small city, in a few acres, and it is walled. Okay? And there is Jewish quarter, there is Arab quarter, there is a Christian quarter, there is an Armenian quarter. And I have lived in Jerusalem for a few weeks. And then, the taxi dropped me at one point and said, no, I cannot go to that side. Because I am a Jewish taxi driver, I cannot go to the Arab side. Then what should I do? He said, you walk. So from the Jewish side, I had to walk to the Arab side to get a taxi to go to my Arab guest house. What do I do then if I have to go to the Armenians? I go to the Christian quarter and walk from there. Now we are now talking about a new situation, but in Isaiah's time also, it was not divided into that sort of, but it is a city full of murderers. Now, what Isaiah sees is that in this, though it is like a situation like ours, Mumbai, what will happen tomorrow? We don't know. I am traveling by tomorrow, I am catching a flight. I don't know whether I will be able to catch a flight. People are saying be there at 3 hours because there is security and all sort of things. We have no hope. But Isaiah could see, that is one amazing thing about the prophet Isaiah, who has seen the face of God, who has seen the glory of God in Isaiah chapter 6. He can see hopelessness in the context, he can see hope in the context of hopelessness, utter hopelessness. And in that context, he will still stand for hope. I wrote a blog, and I wrote a column and sent to the Times of India. They didn't publish it. I published it on my blog about this passage. What I was trying to say is that hope is still possible. In my blog, I was saying, and a lot of people read it, I said hope is still possible. So religion is not nasty. Religion is still the hope of the world. That is all that I was writing. I said, no, don't throw away God. Because some people who have godly look are shooting people. Some people are doing that. Catholics in Ireland, they call upon the name of Jesus and Saint Mary, and they shoot the Protestants. And the Protestants who when they believe in Jesus, they shoot the Catholics. That is what was in Ireland. The people who are sick, they were not atheists, they were godly people. But still, what I'm trying to say is that what the word of God says is that people of God still have, and they hold the peace for this world. Now why do we say that? Because Isaiah could see a peace, a possibility. Now when he looks at a hopeless world, a man of God sees hope in the world. When he looks at the hopeless world, he can only see hope. That is amazing, isn't it? When you look at a sick child, you see death or life. That depends on what you are going to do for him. When you look at a sick child, you decide you have to see life in it in order to heal that child. If you are seeing death in it, gone. You cannot do anything. A few years ago, we had a very severe famine in Ethiopia. And I know a man who was working with UN aid agency and who was distributing aid in Ethiopia during that maybe 15 or 20 years back. And he was telling us that how did they distribute? They have some rations of medicine and food and shelter and all that. So in the refugee camps, people are laid there. And the doctors will come and will mark with a chalk piece on the forehead of the people, a mark. And the 8 people, those who are carrying aid, will come, and if they see that mark on their forehead, they will not give any food for them. They will just skip them. You know why? Because the doctors have seen this patient or this person who is on this floor in a mattress or a sheet of plastic, and the doctors have decided this man is not going to survive. Whatever medicine you give, whatever food you give, he is beyond hope. So they have marked him so that people who are distributing food will skip that person because you are wasting the very expensive medicine on him. So they skip him. Now what I'm trying to say is that only if you can look at a person, only if you can look at a situation, and if you can see life in it, that situation, then only there is hope. Otherwise, we are not able to do anything for that person. Now that is what Isaiah's difference that Isaiah makes. Isaiah sees a world situation. A world situation, a situation of hopelessness, utter hopelessness. And then he can look at it, and then he will see a time when all the world will come to this city which was a hopeless city. actually they will come to this city which was a hopeless city. And then you know what they will say? Imagine a world where the nations will come, different countries will come, people of the various ways world will come, and they will say, he will teach us his ways. No. Verse 3. Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, so that we may walk in his paths. The Lord will go out from Zion, the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He says that the same Jerusalem where the martyrs have made it their heaven, where adulterers thrive in this city in God's plan has a plan. God has a plan for the city, and that is to become a place of hope. And this will be recognized by everybody. Now, maybe this is Isaiah's hope, but when we come to the New Testament, that is changed. That is the church of God, the church of Jesus Christ. Now, he would say there is going to be a hunger among the people for peace. There is going to be, whether you are a Muslim, Hindu, Parsi, whether you are from Europe or America, wherever it is, Isaiah is seeing a world in which everybody will recognize the need for hope. Need for peace. And they will come to the people of God, to the church of God. Now, what Isaiah prophesied about Jerusalem was fulfilled. And we live in that period of fulfillment. Have you ever read chapter 2 of Acts 2? Acts chapter 2. What do we see there? On the day of Pentecost. People from all over the world, they came. Who started the church of Jesus Christ? Who founded it? It was not founded among the Jews. It was founded by people from all over the world. On that day of inauguration of the church of Jesus Christ, people from all the neighboring countries were there as the representatives. That's amazing, isn't it? That's amazing. It is not a small regional movement in Jerusalem. That is how we think of it. No, it is not. When the church was first founded, it was by a group of people from all over the world. And what do we see in Revelation chapter 7, verse 9? That is the end of the whole series of events. And in the Revelation chapter 7, verse 9 also, we see a similar situation. When the history will come to a consummation, what will we see? We'll see people from all nations, all races coming before the throne of the Lord. Now, what I'm trying to say is, there is going to be a day when everybody will recognize the need for peace. Everybody. But they will come to the people of God. Now, what is our responsibility? Our responsibility, that is what we are going to see. Now, people predict, what are they predicting? They are predicting that by 2020, Mauritius will be underwater. Why? Because of global warming. Now, I told you about I was in Finland, and I talked to a lady at the counter at the airport. I said, you have started having snow. And she said, no, sir, this snow will not last 2-3 days. When I was a little child, the snow used to last for weeks. I said, why? Because of global warming, we are not having enough snow. And this was what's going on. So what are we seeing? What are the people who are the environmentalists are telling us that you are going to fry and die. You will be fried to death very soon. Yes, things go this way, that is going to happen. If people are going to buy weapons like this, and any 21-year-old boy can get a Sten gun, what is the world going to be like? It's going to be a hopeless world, isn't it? But that is true. But what he is trying to say is that if people is going to come to a day when people will look for peace, and they will come to the Lord Jesus and to the true God, and then what he will do when they come to study the Word, when they come to know the true God, something is going to happen. You know what is going to happen? They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. would like to see a time when all the weapons of the world are brought to one place and they set fire on it. So we don't have any more stun guns, AK-47s, and we don't have any of those things. Nuclear arms, nothing like that. Then how will the world benefit from it? That's an ordinary dream. But God gave his servant a greater dream. You know what is that greater dream? That every weapon will be turned into a pruning knife. You know what is pruning knife? Pruning knife is something that you use. In Kerala we have tapping knives. You cut an incision, make an incision on the rubber, and you take the rubber, the sap of the rubber. And then similarly, olives, figs had to be pruned in Israel. So every weapon, sword, will become a plowshare. That means whatever you invest now in mass destruction will be tools of mass production. See, peace and hopelessness is going to turn into prosperity. See, we are people who have learned to live in austerity. You know what is that? This is enough. People ask me, how do you survive without air conditioning? People ask me, how do you survive without air conditioning? And I have never thought of that, because I have lived more than half of my life now without air conditioning. But there are people who cannot think of life without air conditioning. See? Now we are also coming to that stage sort of thinking now. But think of a time in world's history where everybody can live in prosperity. When everyone can live in prosperity. Not just a few people, but everyone. How can this be possible? But Isaiah sees not only peace, but he's looking at a time of prosperity when everybody will not just throw his stun gun, but turn that stun gun into something that can be used for producing something. Food, olives, pruning knives, or plowshares, whatever it is. So what Isaiah says is that when God is going to work through the heart of his people, it's not only going to be a time of simple peace, but it is going to be a time of prosperity as well. Sometimes I'm a restless person. Now, especially for students whom I'm ministering to. Now, I travel all over the world, and I have found that on the other side of the hemisphere, now people have the right and the power to dream. But on this side, they don't have. You see, they can travel, they go for expeditions to Israel, they go for excavations in Israel, but our students doesn't have even money to buy notebooks. There is a problem of the poverty divide. You see, so we don't dream. What can I do that? But we have to dream. If we are real children of God, we have to believe and we have to work towards this stage of prosperity. That is, there is no difference between those who are in the west and those who are in the east. Everyone should enjoy their life before the grave. That's what I'm trying to say. Life before the grave, they should have peace and prosperity. Can we dream of that? No, can we? Sometimes I say, it may not happen in my time, but still I am not giving up hope. I want to have that happen in the days of my children. But I have to work for that. But how do we work for that? That is what Isaiah is talking about. Isaiah is talking about, though he will see he can only see destruction and war and battles and all sort of things. He will say, there is a time when everybody will lay down their weapons of war and will turn it into tools of production. Now, this is a very famous hope. You know that? In the plaza of the UN building in New York, there is a sculpture. The sculpture is of a blacksmith who beats his sword into a plowshare. It's a beautiful sculpture in metal. And there you will see, under that, in the United Nations building in New York, you will see this verse. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. That verse is inscribed in under the sculpture. But that is the hope of the world. Now what Isaiah says is more than that. What is that? They will come to you. That's what he said. And they will come to the people of God. asking for peace. And they say, we have no peace. We don't know how to bring peace. Can you teach us your ways? Can you teach us how to bring this peace into our lives? How to bring this hope into our lives? That is the responsibility that we have. Now, Matthew 5:14, Jesus said, you are the light of the world. You are the light of the world. Now, there was a little boy, and this little boy was standing in snow on a cold winter morning, and he had no shoes, and evidently he had no socks as well. So what this boy would do is that he has newspaper in his hand, and he's selling newspaper to people who are passing by. You know, they have coats and they have many layers of warm clothes and all that. So he will stand in the snow, and for a while he will put the other leg on his feet on his leg and warm that feet. And after that he will put this feet on this and warm. And he will alternate like this. When he's standing on one leg. And then a passerby told him, man, boy, son, it's too cold here, you know. Why are you standing in the cold? So he was trying to, he's standing in with one foot on this snow and then warming. He said, yeah, I know it is snowing, I know it is cold, but I know the sun is going to rise. That's a very dramatic, but it's a very, very radical reply, isn't it? No, he said, why are you suffering like this? He said, yes, I know it is cold, but I know one thing. What is that thing? I know sun is going to rise. Amazing hope. Amazing hope. Now, small things discourage us. Very small things discourage us. But we should now learn trusting in God to hold on. See, to hold on. Have you seen this tug of war thing? You know, in US also we have every day, every year, at the end of the last year of sports day, we have tug of war. You know, why do that team fail? I have always found that one person give up. One person on one side, he or she gives up. Because she or he cannot see the mark. Because he or she may be the far end of the rope. He or she cannot see which way the rope is going and has given up, and thus everybody has to be is fails, isn't it? But there are small things where we should not give up. We should have that terrific hope. And that comes from the fact that in utter hopelessness, God gives His servants who seen His glory, like Isaiah saw in chapter 6, hope. Hope against hope. Now, look at a world when there is no hope. Have you ever thought of that woman, an ordinary nanny, who is going to probably receive the highest civilian order in Israel, who rescued little Moshe of 2-year-old? You know that's the Calcutta story? Yeah. This lady became, I wanted to be that nanny for that day. If this is going to happen to me, just for 2 hours. See, who knew that? But that lady, you know what? I watched the interview that CNN had with her, and the interviewer was trying to beat back her tears. You know, when this woman was interviewed, and she was so cool. But that woman, for a few seconds, she saw hope. If she saw only hopelessness, what would have been the fate of that little Moshe? For just when she was asked to go down, when she went down, she had no hope in it. He would have just made this boy stop the boy crying and brought the boy back to the terrorists, isn't it? But she could look at the situation and she could see hope in the situation. So this is what that we need to do as well. Look at our situation, whatever discourages us, whatever frightens us, whatever intimidates us. Look at it and see, yeah, there is hope in it because God has ordered hope in it. That is when the first step, getting out of hopelessness, the first step is to see hope. Then become a center of hope. Then Isaiah concludes and says, "Come, O house of Jacob, let us walk in the light of the world." Come, O house of Jacob, let us walk in the house of the light of the Lord. And that's what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5:14. He said, "You are the light of the world." Where should be the light? The light should be Not under a bushel, not under the bed, but it should be on a stand. Why? Because people can see the light. Now, earlier day, in the ancient days, light was not something that was simply giving light to others. The light was limited, isn't it? You can only see maybe this room in that light of a lamp. But people who are in the darkness will see a light in the distance, and they will walk through the darkness towards that light. That was the other purpose of light. Nowadays we have searchlight. What is searchlight? Searchlight in the far, in the NDA, sometimes that searchlight we can see in DPRD. That searchlight searches out. No, this is a little lamp. Wherever you are, you be there. And when people see that light burning there, they will come to that light. Like fireflies come to the light. I mean, like flies coming to the lights. So what is our responsibility? We have the responsibility to be senders of hopes here and there. The senders of hope. Now let me tell you, my Christian life, I found this is really possible. This is really possible. I have lived with Christians who are believing Christians who have become senders of life in their camps, senders of life, senders of hope in their offices, senders of hope in the housing societies where they live. You know how? Because we need to have some hope in us. We need to be ready to share this hope with our people. And when they see this man or this woman or this young man or this young woman has peace, they will seek peace from us. And that is how we change the world. That is how we change the world. You know, we have to have light in us. And that is the tremendous responsibility that Isaiah gives to his people, the people who minister. He said, "O house of Jacob, let us come, let us walk in the light of the Lord." Come, let us do it, because the world needs us. Why should we walk in the house of the Lord? Because the world needs light. Why should we have peace? Because the world needs peace. There was a short film which I saw a few years ago about a little boy who didn't want to become a monk, but his mother is forcing him to become a monk. And she brings that little boy to the monastery, and the senior monk was counseling him. He said one word which actually touched me. He said, "We become monks, ascetics, for the welfare of the world." That is an amazing thought. He said, "We become monks," because the boy didn't want. He wanted to play with his his electronic gadgets and things like that. He didn't want to live in a monastery like that. But when this boy was brought to the senior monastery, the senior monk told him, "We become monks for the welfare of the world." That is the Christian responsibility. How do we do it? We are thinking of this Exploring Christianity series. Let me tell you, this challenge. When your people, the people in your housing society know, here is a family, here is a person who prays for those who are sick, they definitely come seeking. When they say in your office, when people see, oh, here is a person who has a close walk with God, and I don't have peace, but I can probably go and share my troubles with that person. That is how you put yourself on a lampstand. Putting myself on a lampstand. You see, if I was a pastor in another denomination, I could become, I have the, certain marks that I can wear, so that people can say, "Here goes that guy, he may have some hope." But most of the time I may not have hope. See, I can wear a clerical collar, I can grow a long beard, and people say, "Here is a priest, and this priest may have your help." No, that is not what we are saying. What we are saying is, through our lifestyle, through our faith, through our integrity, through the peace that we have to become senders, beacons of hope and peace. And then we can definitely change the world. And I really thank God for Kavita, who came the other day and shared. And Sanjoy, who also came the other day, yesterday to our house, and he just was there with the One of the things that I enjoy, I like in this sort of people is that there are people who stand up for their faith. No, they will stand up for their faith. They'll say, I believe in Jesus Christ. And they'll say, I pray. When people come to them and say, we have problems and all that, they will say, we pray for you. And how can you? I will just pray for you. And that language people cannot understand. Sometimes they find it very strange to believe that there are people who pray for you. I didn't know that. When we had a news about the Bible study I was doing in the events column in the Times of India a few years ago, and I was doing a Bible study in the Times of India. And one person asked another person working in Times of India, what is this? And he said, this, what do you do there? He said, one person was going to that meeting when she saw this column. And said, events today, Bible study in YMCA, that was in the small column right upon it. And they said, they study the Bible and they pray for you. And she said, how can you pray for me? I never pray for others. You see? And this is a language where people cannot understand. See, Hindus never pray for others. They pray for themselves and for their friends and their families. Because that is not in their thinking. Only believing Christians can pray for others. And that message itself, and when you go tomorrow and if somebody comes with a problem and all that, if you say, I will pray about it and I will see God's, that brings a dramatic change in their attitude. That is how we put ourselves on a lampstand. Let us try to do that. See, this week's challenge is putting ourselves on a lampstand so that people can see our light. The light of the Lord coming through. Will you take it as a challenge? When somebody comes with a problem, you say, the first thing you should say is that, yes, we'll pray about it. I'm going to share this with my pastor. I'm going to share this with my believers. We're going to sort out this problem through prayer. At the same time, we'll also sort out it through practical means. Don't use it as an excuse. Prayer as an excuse. So let us seek God's face, because we have a tremendous responsibility in this world. When people are frightened, when somebody comes and tells you, where are we going? Can I go to Bombay? Is it safe to go? You tell them, yes, safe to go. I'll be praying for you till you come back. Say that to them in faith, with the hope. And say that to them. When somebody says, I'm developing a sickness, say, no, I will pray for you. Now God will give you healing. Speak words of faith, words of peace, and words of hope. And that is how we become a center of hope and peace.